Morning. Hope all you wicked wanderers are having a great day. Me? I'm doing awesome. There's something very cathartic about blazing a trail after a fresh snow. Granted, it does slow you down a little bit, but the snowshoes do help. So today's video is the summation of our epic trilogy. The answer to the question on everyone's mind, so you want to vlog your through hike. I feel like there should be some dramatic music playing here. So in part one, we defined who we were. You be you. In part two, we looked at our camera gear. And just like our favorite fable, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, we learned there is a just right. Too hot equal too heavy. Too cold, also too heavy. Just right, the iPhone 8 Plus. Okay, the iPhone 8 Plus in my opinion. Just in case anybody wants to send a complaint letter. Although I am Canadian, we do appreciate a good complaint letter. Anyway, since no vlog can be complete without actually, well, filming something, today's video, part 3 of 3, the final chapter, the finale extraordinaire, we are going to look at shots. And you may be saying, but wait, at the end of the last video, didn't you candidly admit that you really have no idea what you're talking about? So how do you presume to tell us what shots to make? To which I would reply, 1, you really should try not to start a sentence with a conjunction such as but. 2, thank you for watching all the way to the end. That helps with the view time. And 3, you're absolutely right. However, I have spent at least 28 minutes rigorously scouring the YouTube for shots about hiking and vlogging. So consider what's about to follow more the hiking while vlogging book report versus any semblance of that wise old mentor sharing his wisdom with the next flock of would-be vloggers. Welcome to my hikeafication. Seat ready to go out and start filming. Easy Jedi, just a little bit longer, a little bit of patience. For before we actually start video anything, it's important to first plan a little bit for the day. You see, in my humble opinion, there are 2 types of vloggers. The first is the type that can just go forth, camera in hand, turn it on, and come back with a very compelling story. And this is probably the more genuine and authentic type of vlogger you can possibly be. Think about our fellow 2017 AT vlogger Red Mage and his episode number, I think it was 70. If you followed Red Mage, you probably know which one I'm referring to. For I don't think I've seen a more authentic video on YouTube ever. And I've watched a lot of YouTube. And you don't get that type of authenticity by planning for it. So if that type of verbal spontaneity resonates with you, if that aligns with who you are, you have my utmost admiration and my permission to skip ahead about 2 minutes and 24 seconds. Now, if I were to just wing it, you're going to get a lot of videos of me drinking coffee with this bewildered, perplexed look on my face. A lot of So, well, yeah. You see, I'm not this witty, spontaneous sort. I don't have the gene that gives one the gift to gab. At least with any semblance of cohesion in my thoughts. Rather, I am the second type of vlogger. I am the planner. I'm the one that wants to take a little bit of time before you turn the camera on to think about what I want to shoot. And I'm not suggesting one scripts out everything they're going to say or this elaborate storyboard of their shots, but I like to focus on some key topics that I'm going to discuss, whether that's the weather or camp life or the views. I like to jot down a few notes of thoughts that I want to make sure I articulate when I actually do turn the camera on and start talking. Which does not mean you can't deviate if the mood strikes, but those 10 or so bullets, they keep me organized. And those times where my editing gets a little bit lazy, you can actually see me looking down below the camera. For typically that's where I keep my notes, or in some cases my notes on the iPad. Case in point, this is today. You'll see bullet number 6, show to the audience your list, followed by how do you plan for your day? Well, I plan for my day while I'm having my coffee. I always have this little pad with me and I jot notes as thoughts come to me. And so during that morning, I structure a little bit of the topics that I think I want to talk about. For me, the amount of prep also varies depending on the type of video or vlog I want to shoot. If it is just more the opinion type vlog, then yeah, there's going to be 6 or 8 bullets just to kind of keep me on course. If it is the more scene-based, a little bit more film versus vlog, then I am thinking about some of the shots that I want to capture that's going to help evolve that story. And I'll actually go search for those through the course of the day or the week. Okay, so it's now time to turn on the camera. And I'm not going to give you any real technical advice on how to film, for my advice would essentially come down to turn the camera on, try to get what you want to shoot in frame, and hopefully maybe put it in focus. For settings, however, I do have a few thoughts. Now I use Filmic Pro, just personal preference. And if you're inclined, I would suggest you bump up the resolution to the highest you can while still being able to render and download a video. This also takes into consideration how long your video is. Remember, Wi-Fi is going to be unpredictable, so it's all about balancing the time, the storage space, the quality versus the speed. As a starting point, I try to film all this type of kind of talking headshot at 1080p. And for the more cinematic type shots, I go to 4K. I still downgrade the overall video to 1080p before I upload to YouTube, but this way I still have a few of those higher resolution clips for future use if I want to do something with them. Also, you want to typically crop at 16:9, and if I can give you one piece of advice that you take away, please try to shoot horizontally versus vertically. It's just a bit of a pet peeve of mine. Other settings. I will typically do 30 frames per second as for the standard shots. If I want a more cinematic feel, I may slow it down to 24 frames per second. And if I think I want to do something weird in editing like slow-mo, then I'll bump it up to 60 or more. That way you still get the clarity of shots. Now I will leave aspects such as exposure and white balance and ISO and specialty shots like time-lapse or motion lapse or hyperlapse for somebody better armed to articulate it. I will say I am currently trying to shoot a bit more flat, with more of a LUT profile, and then pushing up the color and the contrast, etc. in editing. This gives you a little bit more control on the output. Now, it does add some time to the editing, so probably wouldn't necessarily be recommended on the trail. However, you can minimize some of it by setting your presets in your software, such as LumaFusion, and just applying it to the clip as a whole. So shots. From my exhaustive 28 minutes of research, I have learned there are basically two types of shots. There's your primary, which is kind of where your narrative comes in. And then there's your B-roll. And that's that extra visual effects to really add to the story that you want to tell. And within both those groupings, you have lots of options. And from those options, you can have one that you stick to or change them out. And really how an individual creator defines their style is really how they stitch those various types of shots together. Which ones to include, how long, how they transition. There is no one way to vlog. And that's what makes every vlogger, every creator unique. How they all can have this different voice, irrespective of what they're saying, granted. And that's the fun part of it. The same basic shot from just a slightly different angle or maybe a different focal length can give you an entirely different perspective. So my intent here is to give you a sampling of some of those types of shots to keep in your back pocket, to pull out as you need to, as you want to kind of change up your look and your feel. Word of warning, for any of you that have actual real knowledge of shots or filmmaking, I am literally just winging it. I'm giving it names that make sense to me. So you may have a slight cringe factor over the next little while. Bear with me. So let's start with the primary shots. First and foremost is your talking head. Camera's in front of you. You talk to it as if you're talking to another person. Look into the lens. They say for the best results, you want the camera just a little bit below eye level. But I don't really know who they are, and when you're out in the middle of nowhere, this may be a little harder to accomplish. Variations on the theme can include the ground shot, which I'm partial to, mostly because my tripod's all of 6 inches off the ground. And now these talking head shots help to really create the bond with your audience because you're talking to us. To mix things up, think about also changing how much of you gets in the picture. Just try not to cut yourself off at the knees, as that just looks weird. Next we have the interview. I like this one, albeit in moderation. Pretend you're talking to someone else, or don't pretend, actually talk to someone else. And here the camera is more a voyeur into the conversation, the metaphorical fly on the wall. Next, we have the gold standard for all hiking vlogs, the walk and talk. You're holding the camera out in front or to the side, and like the talking head, this creates this nice intimate interaction with your audience. Try for a wider lens if you have the ability, just to get some of that background in for context. And I like to transfer between the arms, not for any real variation in shots, although there is that benefit, but more because I've got these really skinny chicken arms and vlogging setup tends to get heavy in a while, so you need to give the arms a break. Similarly, try to look into the direction of the camera at least occasionally, but also keep an eye on the ground. You really don't want to be that guy or girl that trips while on film for a while. Great for the blooper reel, perhaps not so great for your physical well-being. Next is what I affectionately call the show and tell. Turn the camera on, let us see what you're seeing while providing the concurrent narration as you're walking down the trail. This is great to really get a feel for the trail experience. Word of caution, unless you're creating the sequel to the Blair Witch Project, you do want to think about stabilization and adapt techniques, etc. to help minimize some of that camera shake. As it's generally not recommended to your audience, well, physically nauseous. Now this is an area I will claim absolutely no mastery of, and as such tend to shy away from, which I need to get over really, because it's pretty effective to put oneself in the shoes of that creator. Now a version of the show and tell is the stationary show and tell. Same thing, only, well, stationary. Yeah, I get pretty inventive in my naming conventions. Great for those views. Think about adapting that with a pan. And then if you're really accomplished, bring this all together with the 360 pan talking head combo. Just make sure you stretch first. Okay, so that's a good start to our shot arsenal. Now let's supplement it with a little bit of the movie magic, and that's your B-roll. B-roll can be great for that dramatic effect. You know, think of that soundtrack going underneath, that deep booming voice narrating the clip. B-roll is typically what makes your vlogs a little bit more cinematic, without actually becoming films, obviously. So, in the realm of hiking videos, when we mention B-roll, there is one shot that everyone thinks about, and this is you walking away from the camera. And there's a reason this comes to mind, and I would wager more highly used. It's because it's pretty effective and pretty dramatic. But hey, don't be shy, mix it up. How about the walk across? Or the walk towards? Or the walk away? But wait, you forgot something. You have to come back. Oh no, you didn't, it's in your pocket. Keep going. I think you get the picture. Next, it's very common to focus on one area of the body. Feet works because the underlying theme of our hiking vlogs is us walking. So you get the shot of the feet. How about the feet walking past? The one step. And if you want to push the envelope, courtesy of Shug Emery, the Hammock King of Minnesota, think of the groundhog or gopher. A shot from the perspective of your feet. Okay, I think you get our perspective. The other type of B-roll can include macros. Don't be shy to put pictures in. Maybe scenic shots. Scenic shots with you in it. And don't be afraid to change the cropping in the edit to give that feel of movement. When I'm feeling artsy-fartsy, I may change this to black and white, because nothing says artistic and cinematic like black and white. Okay, now that you've mastered your own arsenal of shots, it's time to put them together. And this is where editing comes in. I would apply the KISS, keep it simple, stupid principle if I were you, especially if you don't have an editor at home taking care of the files for you and you're trying to do it yourself on the trail. Now you can use lots of programs. iMovie, LumaFusion are both great options, especially on the iPad. But again, everything in moderation. Try not to overdo it, especially those transitions. And remember, like we emphasized in our first video of this series, the audience is there for you, to hear what you have to say. Yes, it's nice to have a plethora of pretty pictures. I like alliteration. But it's not a requirement. I, for one, am equally, if not more so, captivated by just a really good story. And just like Friday the 13th, part 12, this will be the final chapter. Or will it? And alas, this will also be the last of these intermissions. These fun little interludes that are correlated but not specific to my Appalachian Trail through hike. At least until I hit the trail. As we've got about 35 days left and a pretty long list of things to do, so it's time to buckle down and get serious. There will probably still be a few more videos in February, but they'll be a little bit more specific to my Appalachian Trail through hike versus me waxing poetic on my hiking philosophy. Till next time, hike on.